Okay. Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brame. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports people who are navigating stigma. In 2017, we started as a primarily herpes support resource, simply because we consistently saw that 36% of people who've taken our surveys struggled with suicide ideation. And the best way I could think of was to get other people to share their experiences if they were okay with where they were with their diagnosis, as a way of just giving other people some kind of hope to be able to have a blueprint on how they can live life, dating, moving forward, and finding partners. I myself was diagnosed with genital herpes at the age of, what was I in 2013? I was what? Oh, 12 years ago. I was 24, turning 24 years old. And when I got diagnosed, I think my initial feelings about it were an intense embarrassment. Embarrassed at the fact that I didn't want to be known as the person who was going around here giving people herpes. And so when I reached out to my most recent partners, what they said was that they didn't have it. And I was left with a sense of instant relief, just knowing that I didn't pass it on to any of them. Now, for those 4 years between 2013 and 2017, when I started this podcast, I really just kind of drifted, is the best way to put it. A lot of my behaviors were very unconscious. I wasn't able to be present. I've gotten snapped out or called out of being absent minded, by friends, by family, and just called out for behaviors that just didn't make sense. And I use the word drift to honor Napoleon Hill's work, Outwitting the Devil, which is where he interviews the devil. We don't know if it's real or a figment of his imagination, but the conversation really sparked something in me to investigate my own sense of purpose. And when the devil described himself in the book as the negative portion of the atom, it made me go, huh, there's a negative, and he talked about the positive, but there really wasn't much, there wasn't any mention of the neutron. And so I started to investigate this whole atom philosophy. You'll see me talk about atomic yoga, atomic purpose. And the idea is looking at atoms, which are the micro versions of us and how they behave, and modeling a life that aligns for your lived experience that looks like that. And so that's what I've been doing for myself. I've been living in this way, not long, but just living it enough to be able to practice it and gather language. I think this platform, YouTube, as well as ChatGPT and Google, for providing me with the necessary tools to bring about language that I just didn't have access to for how I feel. And so looking at things on the micro level of atoms and the way that they work also mirrors the way that stars on a macro level work. And I've found a lot of structure, routine, and peace in that for myself. And it's really been a powerful practice for me in just being present. And so I hope that through injecting some of that knowledge into something positive for positive people, that this can begin to become something that expands beyond just supporting people with herpes in this one aspect of their identity. Because what we've learned is that stigma really manifests in several other ways of living. I look at the intersections of being a man and masculinity, what vulnerability looks like as a cisgendered heterosexual Black man, especially working in the field of sex education, where there is not a lot of people who look like me. And there's those things. There's the fact that I've talked to people. I'm at almost 400 podcast episodes over the last 8 years who've navigated all types of stigma. We're not just talking about living with herpes or HIV or sexual health in general. We're talking about alternative relationship structures. We're talking about LGBTQ plus identities. We're talking about stigmas around what it means to live in a larger body, what it means to have an invisible illness, what it means to have any chronic illness, what it means to have mental illness. and some behavioral disorders, right? There are these assumptions that we make about people. And my belief is that, looking at how atoms work, that my sense of purpose is to bring forth more of those conversations for the sake of drawing in people to see that there's a choice. There's a choice that we can make. You don't have to drift as long as you did, or as long as I did after I got my herpes diagnosis and started to navigate stigma in a very unconscious way. What I did was I began to make a choice for myself and how I wanted to live. And that came through just bumping into people and being receptive to what they were saying and having this awakening of consciousness within myself. That's been something that has really been powerful for me personally. And I find that when people have been able to validate my identity outside of my herpes diagnosis, outside of my blackness, outside of my masculinity, what that's left me with is that I don't have to perform. And I've seen people just be present with me and inspire my own presence to be able to hold the container that is this something positive for positive people platform. So I'm very enthusiastic to be able to come here on YouTube and do a live stream and test this out, to begin working through as my podcast recording platform. A lot of my podcast interviews are with other people. And if I can get this thing to work right, like today's a test. I'm seeing what this looks like for me. And if there's anything that I can take from this and utilize, I would love to, because Zoom's getting expensive. And the sound quality isn't great. So when I ran my little 3 minute test here, it felt aligned for me to be able to move forward on YouTube and be able to utilize this platform, because a lot of what I talk about, especially men's mental health, is really being censored. And emotional wellness, emotional intelligence, and what it means to be emotionally available. Um, I've tried to run ads for it, and I'm not allowed to. And it's really wild to me, because we see the necessity of this. A lot of the people that I work with are mostly women, and a lot of the issues that they have are from men not being able to access the language that they need in order to be able to have a cohesive bond with someone and to have a healthy, stable connection and relationship with their significant other. And so my role here is to, as best I can, demonstrate some of that for the people who may identify me or find me, or, just that see that representation. So I'm hoping that this is something that's useful to other people, and me just sharing my own personal experiences, having this platform be a place where I get to really express my values, being able to create something, being able to connect with others, being able to be curious. And as I live that, being able to express that in a playful way, that yes, while this is my work, it's also something that is fun for me. I really enjoy these deep conversations that we get to have. I enjoy being able to connect with people, not just in what I believe my purpose to be, but also hopefully inspiring their own, inspiring them to just understand that they have choice in how they navigate life. So I want to just introduce some of what you can expect from something positive for positive people moving forward. And for those who are brand new to this space, like, you ain't missing anything. Everything before this was supporting people who were navigating or struggling with herpes stigma, and a lot of work with medical providers and teaching them how to support people living with herpes, deliver a diagnosis, and offer consulting for their concerns moving forward. So one thing that I want to note is, I didn't realize this, but I thought the word positive meant good, and I thought negative meant bad. Turns out, when you look up the definition, positive just means presence, and negative just means absence. And as I did my exploring in Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil, and started to see the language of atoms used, just the forces of gravity and how it relates to habit and being in harmony, staying in alignment, a lot of this language has been sort of dissolved throughout history, I guess, before getting to this point, because a lot of the language that I hear, I don't know that I necessarily apply it in the context that it's supposed to be in. So I hope that through my presence, through me sharing things in the way that I am, is going to be something that's simple enough for you to be able to make the connection between the science and the spirituality of things. Because again, just going down to atoms, like we're made of trillions and trillions of atoms, and when we look at how one atom behaves, then we can sort of see the blueprint for what our life can look like for ourselves. So I mentioned that something positive for positive people was really just a place to validate the identities of people with herpes as a way of bringing them presence. And what I've learned is a lot of why people with herpes struggle with suicide ideation is because of identity invalidation. When someone gets an STI diagnosis, or I believe any kind of stigmatized diagnosis, what happens is that that becomes their personality. It's not I have this, it's this is who I am. And whatever beliefs, thoughts, feelings we had about people with said condition begins to just erupt within us, and they explode. And now, whatever those beliefs we had that didn't apply to us, now because we're that kind of person, because we have that condition, it's now who we are. And it's almost like we completely figure it out, forget ourselves after we receive the news, after we hear the words, you have blank, you tested positive for blank. And I'm here to hopefully just offer space where people can have community and be in presence and allow for those absent thoughts, that unconscious identification with something that is not who you are, to just fall to the wayside. And so I'm looking here. I got my other screen pulled up so that I can stay on task. I want to just share that some of the offerings that we have, they've evolved. This is one of them is first Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time is going to be a stigma support group, and this is herpes inclusive. Now, herpes is not necessarily centered, so if people want to come in and they want to talk about herpes, please don't expect that everybody else there is going to be freely talking about herpes as well. There's all types of stigma. As I mentioned earlier, we've got the stigma of just being a man, masculinity. We've got the stigma of being a woman and the threat to women's bodily autonomy, as well as rights and reproductive health. The hiding and removal of information for queer identifying individuals, trans people. These are all the kinds of identities where people hopefully are able to just come and be seen. And in being seen virtually, of course, being seen and being able to maybe share a little bit of their experience, as well as experience someone else who might be having a shared happening. And sometimes that's all we need. We just need the container held for us to be. And that's what something positive for positive people is and has been for people who signed up for a support call, for people who have reached out about yoga or yoga therapy, which we're bringing back yoga therapy as well. And I recognize that I've been trying to do a lot of things that don't necessarily need to be done, and I've overextended myself significantly. But for the sake of being able to really rein in what holds true and what's most effective and impactful for something positive for positive people, but I'll get into that at the end of the announcements as well. On the second Monday of each month, we'll have a men's support group, and I'm calling it Atomic Purpose. I really like this because it sounds cool, but the idea is to just create this space for men specifically who are navigating their own sense of identity, trying to find what their purpose is in life, looking at masculinity and whatever stigma they might be facing. There's again stigma around men and mental health, love, men and sexuality, and especially heterosexual men for not being able to freely or maybe not even having the language to be able to communicate emotions or what it is that we're feeling or what it is that we need because of these external societal expectations of what we're supposed to do. And there's not really been a lot of spaces that invite us to or demonstrate to us how to just be, unless you watch anime, because then you get to see that, which in these atomic purpose groups, we will be talking about anime. We will be talking about superheroes. We will be talking about gaming. We'll talk about our role models, and we'll be speaking about like just the culture of emotionally available men, which I've primarily just seen in anime, to be completely honest. The third Sunday, I don't really have anything for that. But I will say on the fourth Monday of each month is where you'll experience this. I will have a live podcast recording over YouTube, assuming this uploads well and it's a good test. This is what we'll be doing. So this will be on Thursday, on the fourth Monday of each month at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. I want to get into a rhythm of making Monday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Central Time about something positive for positive people, as well as Tuesdays. Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, we'll have a 30-minute virtual yoga class. It'll be something that I believe I can pull up here and just stream it so that if people want to join, they can. I do just ask that people donate. Something Positive is a nonprofit organization. I like being able to give things away for free. It always just like comes around, goes around. Some people can't give and they don't and won't, and some people who can, and when they do, they do. All right. And then that's going to be the atomic yoga. And that's where I'll be using this language that's centered around the atom, right? I believe that our proton is the sort of like energy life force that we carry with us, that through us, the neutron, we are the neutral force that can express the positive while also holding the negative as well. And the way that atoms work is very beautiful because it's like a rhythmic dance where electrons just kind of float around and drift around the nucleus of an atom, which is where the proton and the neutron are. So if you want to look at this high level, your proton is going to be your purpose, or it's going to be your God, your higher self, whatever higher power you believe in. Your nucleus is what sustains that. Now, in atoms, the nucleus and the proton are bonded, and they're for a stable atom, there needs to be at least one neutron, one proton in order to stabilize. And so the neutron, in human terms, represents awareness, it represents choice. And we have the choice of consistently engaging with our proton, and we have the choice to consistently engage with the electrons or the negative force. Like even now, as I'm talking through this, I'm holding in mind what I believe to be my source, my core identity as the neutron, just awareness and choice and being connected to what my purpose is. Feeling like what I think everybody's purpose is to remind others that they have some inherent larger purpose that they can serve and support and find stillness with. And it's really just about being a presence for that to express itself through you. And in turn, what happens is that the negative around you isn't bad. The negative is just infinite potential. When our presence is able to come from our battery source, our higher power, whatever our faith is, and express itself through us, the electrons kind of get in formation and attract themselves and align in a way that brings forth everything it is that we need in order to be as we are, to be that inspiration. And so I'm using this language and structuring it in a way that I run my yoga therapy calls with clients and teach my yoga classes as well. And so it's just really about atomic living and atomic being, but recognizing that we are this awareness, that we do have something that we believe in that gives us vitality, that gives us life. And we decide how we navigate the world. And we allow things to come in closer to us, or we allow for them to just freely exit our orbit. So there will be discussion and steps that works up to that. There's going to be courses coming. I'm actually in the process of writing a workbook to be able to create so people can fill in their own atomic profile and what the atom is that they call themselves or what they're working on. And I think it's just a beautiful thing. I think it's a very beautiful space for community. And I hope that people will join up for these things. The free webinar. So on May 23rd, which is a Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to have a virtual herpes dating and disclosure webinar. This webinar will consist of me here, just like this. I will be sharing some PowerPoint slides, talking through some of what I've learned about herpes as far as the communication piece goes. I'll share some of the survey results and talk through some of that to just answer some questions people may have. And then at the end, we'll shut it off after an hour and a half from recording so that people can ask questions. I want people to be engaged. I want people to be able to share and exchange stories as well as offer support to one another. I mean, when people come to me one on one, there's only so much I can do as a presence that doesn't really know people. So, my intention is to get people to a place where they're comfortable enough sharing their struggles with someone who knows them and can, in fact, validate their identity outside of what their diagnosis is. And this podcast, this platform, I really do intend to amplify the voices of people who maybe are silenced or maybe they are whispering, and their experiences really do need to be experienced. They need to be set free. They need to be released. And the only way we can do that sometimes is in the presence of presence. And we can get so lost in ourselves and our identities that we don't have access to that. Like, we cannot be present, and it's very difficult to be present. It's not that you don't want to, it's that you literally cannot. And so, my aim here is to bring more presence, is to bring something positive to positive people, which basically means bringing something present to present people. And I'm just not going to change the name. We'll be doing some traveling. So I am going to be traveling actually Friday. Yeah, May 16th. I'm going to San Antonio, Texas. Then I'll be in Austin, maybe Memorial Day weekend, and then in Houston for about a week before I head out to San Jose for June 1st and 2nd. And then on June 2nd, I head out to Phoenix, Arizona for STI Engage, where I'm presenting on how we're able to use podcasting as a way of helping to minimize the impacts of STIs. And then the ASEC conference, which is full of the annual association, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. That conference is going to be in, oh, I wrote that wrong. I put San Antonio. That is going to be in Las Vegas. I wrote the wrong thing in my newsletter. Oops. And then, wow, the National Sexual Health Conference is going to be in Denver, July 23rd through 26th. The National African American Leadership Conference, Los Angeles, June 26th and 27th. The STI World Conference is in Montreal, Canada, July 27th through 30th. And then Sex Down South Atlanta is September 4th through 6th. So I'll be moving around a lot over the summer for sure. But I also just want to let the men here know that there was another organization that I had started called Self, and this was a nonprofit supporting men's emotional wellness. Now that this shift has occurred and we're looking at stigma branching outside of just sexual health, we also incorporate men's mental health and emotional wellness here as well. So if you go to the men's wellness, there's a men's content tab at spfpp.org. You'll be able to view the recordings of the Men's Emotional Wellness Symposium for free. I do ask that if you find value in it, that you consider leaving a donation. It's tax deductible, and it helps us continue this work and allow for things to be in rhythm without the threat or worry of, all right, man, I can't keep doing this. I need to go get a 9 to 5. So whatever it is that you have to give, like, it's an energy exchange, it's a presence exchange, and the more, not quantitatively, but the more qualitative of the presence, I think the better, the more we can really bring this platform into a consistent rhythm to where it is more life producing. There's only so much that I can do on my own, and I'm maintaining that as best I can. and the help that people give by contributing in whatever way they feel called to is really what keeps this thing going. So I appreciate that, and I can't thank y'all enough. If you're somebody who's had an experience with something positive, testimonials always help. If you can just send in an email about your experience working with me, working with me for different things, or working with um, listening to a podcast episode or attending an event, please just send me an email. Just send me an email letting me know what you think, and I'll get that uploaded to the site because I ain't got a lot of those at all. I mentioned the disclosure workshop or webinar. I mentioned the podcast. Now we're looking at the spiritual significance of stigma. And I use, again, the atom to like name that and name what it is, what it means. And yeah, if you're hearing this and you're not watching it, then I do hope that you'll consider joining any of the support offerings that we have on Monday nights at 7:30 for 30, no, not 30 minutes, on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, either attending the men's group or attending the stigma group. And I'll keep those consistent. And then on the fourth Monday at 7:30, you'll be able to expect this. So obviously today's not the fourth Monday of the month, but I just started this, and I'm looking to really begin to um, find stability and structure in it to where I can just keep a rhythm going. As long as I can just keep in rhythm, then we're going to be good. I know that. Now, as far as the herpes survey, the herpes stigma survey, I don't know if this is going to be up past the month of May. We don't have a lot of responses, and I'll use what we have to work with, but I'm not seeing a lot of engagement or active participation. That could be on my end, but I've shared it the places that I know to share, where it's okay to share. If you're hearing this and you know about the survey, please send it to your Discord group, send it to that partner, ex-partner, whoever it is you got, because I really think that this might be the last herpes specific survey that we do, just because it's the time for it that goes into it. It's just not worth it, to be completely honest. And so that's everything newsletter wise. And for me, I want to make space to introduce myself. Now, this is the end of the announcements, or you can call it like the preview, but I think it's important that everybody just know, like, I'm a dude. I'm probably going to say the wrong thing sometimes. I may be a little bit excited at times, or I might be just like super grounded, and just like the feel good vibes are there, right? Um, and I think that for so long I've been held to this standard of perfection, and I'm not perfect. I mess up. I've done things wrong. I've done things that, have harmed myself and other people in the process as well. And a lot of good has also happened. And I'm not going to sit here and like dismiss that as well. So it's important to me that I name that it is very important that we know ourselves. Now, for me, what this structure of the atom does, and I have like, let me see if I got it. So here's my atom, like I've drawn, and I'm working to get people to draw their own, right? Like I have written out the nucleus is really my why, my intention. I'm guided by my first shell of my electron, like all atoms. The first shell has two electrons, and these two are the slowest moving of them, and they essentially keep the core stable. And the yamas and niyamas are those. These are very symbolic to boundaries. The yamas and niyamas are yoga, how you engage with your inner world and how you engage with the external world. That's my first shell. The second shell holds up to 8 electrons, but I only have 3 here. And this is the how. Like this is the how are you living? You got the why, now it's the how, right? Like what are your consistent patterns of engagement? What are your identities? And what I have here, it started with work, play, and rest and balancing those three things out. But then it evolved to who I am from an identity perspective. Like if you take away my body, what am I trying to accomplish? And I think that there's curiosity. I'm a curious person, connection. I love connecting. And then there's also creation, which I very much enjoy creating. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been podcasting over the last 8 years. And as I'm in more of my own personal alignment, with my shell one and shell two, what this brings us is into the three-dimensional world where the what occurs. So when you're still and in alignment and you give your presence to your purpose, your God, your proton, your higher power, and you just keep rhythm of checking in. It doesn't have to be a 10-minute meditation. It got to be an hour yoga class. It can be something as simple as just a breath. It can be just holding the image in mind of your atom and what the visual representation of that is for yourself. So when we get to shell three, what this looks like is my genital exams job, my patient actor job, creating a support group, something positive for positive people, the atomic living model, yoga, supporting people, doing nothing, watching anime, having sex, gaming, creating, and just, yeah, enjoying what it is that I do, but from a place of restful stillness where I'm able to align with my proton to just attract electrons. Now, electrons being negative energy, and there's room for infinite potential. And what happens is that these electrons begin to take form when under observation. So they're just waves of energy until we give our presence to them. And the presence that we give, we want for that to come from the place of our positive engagement. Like I think about attraction and the nucleus of an atom as the proton maintains a positive charge, right? And as a neutron, we touch it, right? However, we make contact, and that surge of energy expresses itself through us. Like we can speak, we can move, we can engage, but the proton itself can't. It just is. And it's radiating in a way to attract electrons, but they only can pick up the signal through our interpretation. And our interpretation, because electrons are always in motion, what our interpretation does is it gets them into rhythm within one of our shell's orbit, the outermost shell, which is where things kind of come and go, the second shell, which is more true to our identity and patterns, and then our inner shell, which is our sense of self, our intention, right? So it's a constant dance. If you ever had a positive magnet and a negative magnet, when you begin to bring them together, that force between that's pulling them together is precisely how this relationship to our purpose and the possibilities are supposed to interact, right? So you being the neutron, me being the neutron, if I have this negative magnet and the positive magnet, and my goal isn't to bring them together and let them be together or keep them apart or flip it to where they're both positive or both negative, it's the force that comes between them that there's the magnetism, and that's what we become when, well, we are that at all times, but when we recognize ourselves as the magnet holders of the positive presence proton and the negative absent infinite potential, that electricity that comes from that is what's radiating through us, and we are in fact able to cultivate more mass and gravity the longer we stay in rhythm of being able to have that energy balance itself and express itself through us. And that's just really how manifestation works. That's how we begin to present things in the three-dimensional world. Now, there's more shells that, transcend time and space. I give the example of, like, I host a podcast. And so the podcast episode that I recorded 6 years ago someone might have listened to and been inspired to donate, been inspired to be a guest, or maybe even to start their own platform. And this is where we get into that, because an action that I did 6 years ago has a real time implication now, especially thanks to technology being able to make such a thing happen. And so that's just like an example of what that looks like. With this being a test episode, it's kind of filler. I ain't gonna lie to you, but it is useful in me just sharing with y'all what those updates are to the website. And if you want to know about what's happening, please just sign up for any newsletter on any page of the website. You scroll down to the bottom, you will most likely see a box that allows for you to sign up for the newsletter. We give one newsletter a month unless you're signed up for some type of an event or something. And then obviously we want you to know about it. Um, and then, yeah, if you're regularly on the emails, then you'll get notified whenever there's going to be a thing like this happening. But you can count on Mondays being consistent, Mondays and Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, being consistent, because this is what I'm supposed to do. And it feels very vulnerable of me to name this. I don't know what it is. I think maybe I feel crazy. I think maybe like it's so simple, and maybe I don't know. I don't know what the other maybes can be, but it does feel very challenging for me to, one, ask for help, and two, express this vulnerability, because I've been in situations where it's not been receptive, or it's not been received well, or the space hasn't been held for it. So I recognize now that in having cultivated this space for as long as I have, it's important that I utilize it, use it or lose it, right? And I see myself as that force, that gravitational, the pull between the positive and negative, and being able to resonate with that now as an adult. I feel very just surrendered. I feel very present now. Like there is no, like, once I understood the transcending time thing, I think that that really put people being late to things into perspective for me, right? We use time to coordinate events, like how far something is, in order to plan ahead, how long we're going to be there so we can plan ahead. And to be able to just not subscribe to the ridiculousness of and the insignificance of something as simple as being late, because I've been so attached to that in the past. It's from relationships. It's definitely had an effect on me. And yeah, I do believe that through my own expressions of vulnerability and being real about what it is that I'm experiencing and what I'm doing, this is going to be something that allows for us to elevate our own consciousnesses. And when I say elevate, I don't mean like up down. I just mean become aware. Again, so many people allow for stigma to displace their identity, and they become fragmented and fractured among the world of electrons, forgetting that we ourselves are neutrons. We are this awareness force that has the ability to choose what and how we engage with, and how frequently, and what that looks like. And so I'm not going to be a person that says, like, oh, well, because I found my proton, I'm not going to have sex because this is my higher purpose and I'm going to transcend all worldly existence. That's not who I am. And what I'm learning is that the more that I just practice being in tune with that part of myself, the more my worldly needs are met, the more I'm able to uphold and stabilize my own rhythm for my proton within my nucleus, and get my electrons in orbit at whatever like consistent pattern they're supposed to be in, for whatever it is that's supposed to make its way through. That's what I am. I'm a vehicle for the most infinite cosmic expression. And I believe that I was put here where I was put here for this reason, right? Like to be here, wake up in unconsciousness, like, whoa, people with herpes want to end their lives? Hold on. Like, and being in the communities and finding the language and just being a presence and seeing what really goes on in people's minds whenever they receive a diagnosis, whenever they are needing to talk about this to somebody, right? It's very important. It's very important. And so I've used this atomic language. I've got a glossary, I got a workbook in progress. And again, I've just been living my life by it. And I want to share this with the world through something positive for positive people. This is my baby. And I absolutely just I gotta see it through. I gotta see it through. And yeah, I think I feel complete with today's podcast episode. If you're somebody who's listening to this, you want to be a guest. I'm a real good interviewer, not so great solo podcast episode recorder, but perfect practice makes perfect. And so as I continue to do this and just work on what that I don't know, like what it can look like. I'll be releasing it. I'll be talking to you all. I'll be sharing clips and everything that I come up with along the way, new epiphanies and examples. But I really want to apply this to a men's group, Atomic Living. All I ask is that people just make donations for the things that they attend. You can attend for free. It balances out. It always balances out. All right. So I believe that's really all I had for today because I want to check this out and I want to make sure that it's everything it is that I need. Um, and yeah, I need a haircut. Ugh. But I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come. I'm staying as grounded as I can and stabilizing my own rhythm. And I'm just observing the electrons falling into place for me. And I think being able to hold that image for yourself of what your values are, and that will be something that gets us to the next step. And, all right, I am going to check the chat and do like a little test. So I see that I wrote that. All right, cool. And then what these other buttons do? All right. that concludes this episode. That concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People. Please like, rate, review, and share this podcast. Now that it's about stigma, I don't want to hear nobody's mouth about it being in relation to herpes. Don't nobody know what kind of stigma you're dealing with. If you want to tell them, you can, but this is not an invitation to become a radical activist. Is just an invitation to bring presence and awareness to your own intentionality while supporting, the intentionality of this platform. All right. So, like I said, first Mondays every month, 2:30 p.m. Central Time, not 2:30, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. The first Monday is for the Hold on, I gotta make sure I say the right thing. The first one is for the support group for anyone navigating stigma. The second Monday is a men's support group called Atomic Purpose, where we find our purpose, looking at the wisdom of the atom. The webinar is going to be on the fourth Monday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and then Atomic Yoga, which is rooted in identity movement or moving your identity. We will have that on Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. So um, I hope this posts. I'm looking forward to being able to utilize this moving forward. And until next time, y'all, just stay present. Stay present.